And Nigel Farage has managed to stagger from the Westminster Arms into our arms in our Westminster studio. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much.
Are you worried that the election result, how it came out, means that Brexit might not now happen?
No, Brexit will happen. We'll leave the European Union. It's impossible for us not to. The question is, will we leave in name only? And, of course, I'm worried about the parliamentary arithmetic. I'm even more worried, actually, about Barnier's behaviour this week, the EU's chief negotiator, taking a very different line, I thought, yesterday. And today, you know, meeting Sturgeon, meeting Corbyn, clearly playing a game of divide and rule. And
But he didn't say anything after these meetings.
No, he didn't. Didn't need to. Didn't need to.
But he has to see them, surely.
Because, well,
he has to see the leader of the opposition, because
No, he
if
doesn't.
there is a snap election, Mr. Corbyn would be the one heading up the negotiations.
I don't think he had to see any of them. I think
Does no
the
harm,
next
really,
time,
does it?
The next time Mrs May gets up, or David Davis gets up and says, this is where the negotiations are, there'll be party leaders saying, oh no, that's not true, Barnier told us something different. So Barnier really has driven quite a wedge, I think, today through our negotiating efforts.
What would you say to that?
Yes, I think that's true, but of course the European Union negotiating position is getting tougher and tougher and harder. And of course President Macron thinks he has a better chance of pinching the city's business and taking it to Paris, whether that's realistic or not, because the government is divided, Parliament is divided. There's a big question about how you would get it through the House of Commons. There's a very big question about how you would get it through the House of Lords. And with such division and such weakness on the British side, why would the European Union feel like giving any concessions at all?
And the economy's slowing. Living standards are now being squeezed. The pound is weak. Brexit talks could soon be in crisis. Is there not a danger, if you are a leaver, that public opinion could turn against it?
I think at the moment, public opinion wants the job done. But the idea, as Nigel was saying in the film, that people voted for a hard Brexit is just untrue. In fact, many people on the Leave campaign were saying they wanted to stay in the single market.
No, they weren't.
I think the thing which has
No, they
changed...
Who said that?
Absolute baloney.
I think the thing which has changed...
Who said that?
I think there were people in the Leave campaign...
Who?
It was,
No, they weren't. Every single leading player on both Remain and Leave could not have been clearer all the way through the referendum that a vote to leave was also a vote to leave the single market. Nobody was in any doubt about that.
That's what Mr. Cameron and Mr. Osborne told us as well.
I don't think that that's what the public heard. I think
Anyway,
they heard,
you were about
I think
to
they
make a
heard
point.
Leaving...
Anyway,
and
that's what
remaining.
ran under the bridge. Well, what was the point you were going to make?
The point I was going to make was that since the general election, we've started to hear for the first time the business voice, which was pretty absent in the election campaign, saying, OK, we're going to leave, but if you leave, and leave means leaving the customs union, or most of the single market, the impact that would have on jobs and investment and bureaucracy, more regulation not left, would be disastrous for jobs and investment. There's a phrase in the English language which goes back many centuries, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. And the problem is, I fear, that Nigel is trying to cut off the nation's nose by demanding and putting the Prime Minister in a position where unless she delivers an impossibility, she will have failed.
What's the impossibility?
I think the impossibility is to have a Brexit which doesn't involve a financial contribution, because there'll have to be a financial contribution on leaving.
Yeah, but the argument's about the size.
Exactly. But I think also, if we're to have an ongoing, sensible relationship, which means that we don't end up with bigger regulatory burdens, we'll need to have mechanisms to manage our trade and regulatory relations with the European Union. And if those are called by Nigel bureaucracy, you've got to break from that entirely. In the end, you end up breaking away from our main trading partner and piling extra regulation and cost on British business.
Come on,
That can't be
there's
what
a
we
great big
want.
world out there. I mean, why you people talk about the 15% of the whole of the globe's GDP as if it was the be-all and end-all is utterly beyond me. Look, I mean...
Let's not refight the referendum. Let's try and look at where we are now.
The problem is this with the Brexit argument, that corporate Britain is organised. All the same people that campaigned for us to join the euro are now campaigning for us to stay in the customs union. And the voice of opposition, there isn't one. You know, and we saw this when the CBI wanted Britain to join the pound, business for sterling, came into being and gave a counterbalance.
Euro.
We desperately need
Let's
British business. We desperately need British business.
Let's
to
not.
speak
Labour
up.
Treasury.
We're not going to refight the referendum,
It was
and
the
I'm
Labour
certainly not
Treasury
going to
who stopped
refight.
joining the
Hold
single
on, Ed.
currency.
We're not going to refight the battle of whether we should join the euro or not. I mean, you can't have the will to live if you're going to do that at this time.
But the idea of business
no,
for
please
sterling.
be quiet.
Business for
Just look, just be quiet. Is there not a sense of drift? The head of the National Audit Office, an independent body, respected senior civil servant, says the government is putting a successful Brexit at risk by failing to show active and energetic leadership.
Well, the one thing that Barnier did get right this week is when he said, I hear the clock ticking. And he's absolutely right. We've dithered and dallied. Took us 9 months to trigger Article 50. We've wasted some of that time with the general election that hasn't worked. So, yes, of course, I'm very worried.
He says nobody can show him the plan for Brexit. He's the head of the National Audit Office.
I
there's
am
no plan.
concerned. I am concerned. And perhaps it gets back to Theresa May. You know, how can you have somebody leading the whole of this who still clearly doesn't believe in it? And I think the
Well,
Conservative
you don't think
Party,
she believes it?
Oh, do you know, she was asked 4 times in that one interview by Paxman in the election, did she as a Remainer now believe in Brexit? And 4 times she said, we will carry out the will of
I don't know a single leading Tory Eurosceptic who agrees with you.
Well, of course,
They're worried about Mr. Hammond, the Chancellor. They're worried about Amber Rudd. They're worried about a number of people in the cabinet who don't think their heart's in it. Not one of them has ever expressed any doubts that Mrs. May.
Why
I would
couldn't you
go
say so?
further and say that some of the Eurosceptics in the cabinet, whose job it is actually to negotiate this thing, are quite worried about the inflexibility of her positions.
That I think it's too hard line.
Well, why not say
and
so
I
then?
think the inflexibility of her hardline positions is what is going to cost her her job, amongst other things.
Now, let me come back to your moment of the week, because it's quite clear that Labour is going to mount a guerrilla war against the Brexit legislation in Parliament, because they need and they hope to provoke an early election. So I don't disagree with that. But there are a number, but the Tory side is going to stay solid on this, because they don't want an early election. And there are a sizable number of pro-Brexit Labour rebels. You add them to the DUP and a whip Tory party, and the government's always likely to get a majority.
Well, the government may get through second reading, which is the very first
Well, you
stage.
said it might not.
I say it may not.
But I'm saying,
then again, I
if
say
you
it
look at
may.
the parliamentary
I say that-
arithmetic,
I say that is
how
unknown.
does it lose? You take a whip Tory party that will, on the second reading, be united. You add in the DUP, and there are 20-odd Labour Brexiteers who will vote too. How do they lose?
And then there'll be 100 amendments after that.
That's a different matter. The amendments are detailed things, but they don't lose the second reading.
They may be detailed, or they may be fundamental. And then the bill, as amended, has to be re-amended by the government to get it back into its original
But on
condition.
fundamental amendments, they will still be able to count on that alliance of Labour Brexiteers,
that I doubt.
DUP and the Conservatives.
That I doubt, because there will be argument about what is a fundamental amendment.
What do you think? There are about 20-odd Labour Brexiteers, aren't there?
Yes, but I think that on particular issues, as they start to arrive, as we saw with Euratom this week, suddenly that hard majority for Brexit starts to have some doubts when these arguments are made. And I think what's really interesting in the last 24 hours is you now have Conservative chairs of the select committees for Treasury and Foreign Affairs, as well as DEFRA, alongside Labour chairs of Brexit and Home Affairs and Business, all of whom disagree with Nigel's hard Brexit vision and want something which
real
is more...
Real Brexit, not hard Brexit, not soft Brexit, real Brexit. We voted to leave. It's very simple.
You were worried about the parliamentary arithmetic.
I am worried about it. Yes, no, I am. I am, and I take
Michael's right.
And I take. Well, I'm concerned. I'm actually more concerned about amendments getting through, and I'm concerned about a sort of gradual watering down than the government falling on this. But yes, of course, your point is right. You know, the political class are fighting back very, very hard. All I can say is that if we reach a period in the middle end of 2019, at the end of all of this, when we really haven't got Brexit, then I think we're going to see a political backlash,
but I think
the likes of which we may never have seen.
But maybe, for your side of the argument, your best hope is that Mrs. May will show a steely determination on this, because her only hope of not going down in the history books is a total failure, which is what she would at the moment if there was to be an election not next month, but in September, is to secure a successful Brexit deal.
She can't do it.
If she doesn't do that, she's not a success.
I think
and
she
you don't
can't-
think she can do it?
I think she can't do it. I think it's very hard indeed for her now to be a serious negotiator with our European partners. I think it'll be very hard for there not to be a general election before the finals deal is done. I think the Conservatives would be much better choosing another leader. I think probably David Davis, who's a Brexiteer, but he's willing to make the compromises. And what's going to happen here, and this debate will unfold in the next year, is people have to realise that to get a Brexit in the national interest, which protects jobs and investment, they're going to have to ignore Nigel Farage and his extreme arguments.
Oh, please.
Because that isn't actually...
52% of
Final
people
word.
voted for it. You may not
I'm not-
like it. And I tell you what...
No, look, you had
can
a go at
fight
him, you've got to let him
back.
reply.
You can fight back all you like.
52%.
Those
No,
of
you be-
in the
just
grip of
be
corporate
quiet.
Britain and in their pay, you can fight as hard as you like. The fact is, if we have a second referendum on this, it'll be an even bigger majority next time.
Well, we shall see. We've run out of time
Nigel.
on this.
I was just saying... a good
What bit of
Brexit-
run out of time don't you get? We've run out of time. We've overrun on this, so we need to move on. Nigel Farage, thank you.